Calendars out. February 17th, February 18th, live trading, San Diego. We got the Lowe's Coronado. I mean, what else would you want? This event is limited to 50 people. Look at your calendar, clear it, make sure you show up. If you want to be a rebel, this is the place to be. You got to sign up for it now. Giddy up, baby.
There it is.
There it is. Don't have the clapper, but I have a clap.
Hey, by the way, thanks for getting all that technical difficulty out of the way. Holy crap.
Yeah, that's what happens. I was reviewing some YouTube comments, Pete, and forgot I had the YouTube on. It wasn't playing anything, but because it was on our YouTube channel, as soon as the show started streaming, it started streaming back at me. And I was hearing it like 2 seconds later for the first half of the show yesterday. And I'm like, what the hell? You know, it's one of those
good.
Garbage in, garbage out. Folks, you're tuned in to The Rebel's Edge. That's Pete Najarian and me, John Najarian, as we deliver to you more than macro, just 1 minute of macro, and the rest trades, unusual activity, a little bit of sports thrown in at the end. So with that all said, Pete, let's get started with 1 minute macro. 1 minute macro today, I'd say, is layoffs are sweeping America. So it is all about employment. It's about people getting jobs or not getting jobs and what the Fed is going to do about it. But the layoffs, man, those are beginning to really stack up. Look at that, 1.5 million in the tech sector alone, Pete.
Yeah, it is amazing, John, to see that. I think that strong jobs number absolutely has the Fed saying, you know what, we're going to continue on the pace in which we're going. And with that, obviously people get a little bit nervous, say the heck with it then. I'm not going to be in the market. I'm going to start selling. And they're selling the S&P, they're selling the NASDAQ, they're selling the Dow, all of which are getting hit pretty hard to the downside. Last thing I'll say is, John, I'm getting all excited about it because after this, later on today, I'll be taping a great thing with the magical guy, Dave Lee, a former Minnesota guy, been in about 30 years. He was the drive guy in the mornings from 6 to 9, and he's got a great podcast called My First Concert. And we've got some good stories coming for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun later on. That's my macro.
And he runs that as a podcast, right, Pete?
Yes, sir. On Apple, on all kinds of different areas. But it's a lot of fun, and he's got a lot of unique guests that he had over the years as he was on that drive time show from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. for, the better part of maybe 30, 35 years, John.
Wow. Well, he is a legend, and we'll have to put up links to that too, Pete.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about NVCR, NovaCure. And these guys up astonishingly huge today, Pete. And it's not a small company. It was a $6 billion company yesterday. Today, it's a $13 billion company, NVCR. They use electrical fields at a specific frequency to interrupt the division of cancer cells. And it's working. And so NVCR screaming to the upside, stock basically just jumping big time. And also one of the people that they do this with is up about half as much, about 30%. What do you think here?
I absolutely love this company. I wish I knew about this company. And I'm not just saying that because it's up 60%, John, but I just was not familiar with this company at all, unfortunately, because this is a phase 3, by the way. We talk about how important it is, how they get into that late stage of everything going on to get themselves into the market itself. And they are right there pushing against it. And they already have, they've got 6 already in phase 3, John, drugs. They've also got 9, or at least in the medical field, 9 more in phase 2. They really are cranking away. And by the way, their balance sheet is absolutely pristine. They've got free cash flow of $60 million. The balance sheet is strong. There are some shorts in here. Those shorts are not too happy today, John, because they're getting absolutely slaughtered. 8 million, nearly 8 million shares trading for a stock that normally trades about 500,000 a day. So a great day for them, a great day for everybody who's struggling from any kind of cancers, that they are actually working together with Standard Drugs. It's an amazing company. I wish I knew about it before the 60% jump.
Yeah, well, folks, this one has been as little as 56 bucks, but today it's basically been off to the races. It was 117.95, Pete, so nearly 118 today, and that is an enormous jump. The volume, 7.7 million shares versus 500,000 normal. Yeah, there's stuff going on that's really good, like Pete said, for cancer patients. And this could extend beyond just lung cancers and things, Pete, but that's specifically what they're looking at here. All right, RPM. Now, you and I have talked about this one, I think one other time, Pete, on the show. And what they do is they make specialty chemicals for industrial consumers, for waterproofing, for coatings and things like that. So if you were to think about who their competitors are, it's probably like PPG and Sherwin-Williams, those kinds of companies. They're down 13% today. And it seems, Pete, mainly just because, can their business get any better? And the answer is really no. It was a phenomenal year last year. And now you've got probably people trying to stretch things out rather than paying up. So I guess that's more or less it. They matched on earnings, but they were expected to beat, I guess.
But they had such strong growth, John. The free cash flow is outrageously good. It's 190 million. There a year ago is 156. You know, I kind of think that this is a name, John, that I think on the punishment that it's getting today, down 10, 12, 13%, whatever it is right now, I don't know. I'm pretty intrigued by it, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that people are still going to be struggling with a lot of different parts, especially as we know that there is a lot going on in the housing world, and that's part of what they do as well, because it's industrial. It's also consumers. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. I just feel like maybe they're taking a little bit too much out on these guys for basically just matching on earnings. They expected a bigger beat maybe, but the match, I think that was good enough.
Yeah, I'm tending to agree with you on that because, you know, when you talk about Home Depot, will people be cutting back on buying new homes? Yes, because rates are up. But will they put money into their homes by fixing their old home up?
Yeah,
perhaps, but maybe they're delaying that until spring, Pete, until you usually go out and buy several pallets full of bark and stuff to spread around as mulch.
That's mulch time.
That's a good indicator, folks, that we're in springtime when Pete does go out and do that. But that's a consumer thing. These guys are industrial as well. So that's why I would say Sherwin-Williams, yeah, mainly consumer focused, but PPG and this one, also a lot of business. And I think that, you pick this one up in the low 80s, I think it's going to be a pretty good deal. All right. What about Silvergate? Not a very good deal. These guys were 162 bucks last year at this time, Pete. These guys today are $12. That's a 93% drawdown. Ouch. What they do, they take fiat, in other words, dollars, and convert it to Bitcoin and so forth, so that then people can, because, you need somebody that's going to do that. You need a crypto-friendly bank, or you can't get your fiat into crypto. Well, in order to make that first step, you need a bank to help you. And I guess with trading down probably the same 93%, it's pretty bad right now for Silvergate.
Yeah, I don't know how they get out of this thing, John. And you talked about this on the macro side about a lot of the jobs that are being lost. Well, how about this company? They're going to cut up to 40% at Silvergate are going to be gone. They got $8 billion in withdrawals. I mean, there's a real problem here. This is going to be a run on these guys. Crypto deposits, obviously, that's become something that everybody just is dancing away from all of that, John, at least for now. Will that be forever? Probably not. But for now, that is still a big deal. So 162 to 11, I don't think 11 is the floor just yet. I think it's got further to go. I hate to say that you and I actually like, and we've met the CEO. We know he's been on with us. We've talked about things, but they're in a bad spot right now, John. This is not the place to be, at least right now, unless you were just jumping in the early stages, but that's not where they are. That's why they're getting all those withdrawals.
Yeah. And when you have a run on any bank, I don't care who it is, if it's JP Morgan, I don't care. If you get a run on the bank and they're withdrawing money at the pace that these guys were withdrawing from this bank, they probably withdrew about the same number, Pete, about 90% of the funds that were in the bank. It's tough to survive that because you don't keep that much in the bank. Obviously, you deposit money in a bank, you expect to get your money back. In this case, these guys didn't gamble in crypto, but they are tied to crypto. That's why they're down so hard. All right. What about Bed Bath & Beyond, Pete? BBBY. My gosh, just a spiral to the downside, down 24% or more. Delays their quarterly filing. That's not good. They're basically saying out loud, hey, probably bankruptcy, and we don't know if that'll even save us.
That's a statement in and of itself, right, John? I mean, these guys, they have nowhere to go. And they've every once in a while, there's been that, well, we got an insider buying, and everybody makes a big deal out of that. And it's like, hey, man, I don't care how many insiders want to buy because I don't understand why they want to burn up even more money, John. This is a stock that's absolutely under pressure. I don't even know why it exists anymore as a company because what they did was very unique for a while. It was a little bit of a niche, kind of a deal. It's not anymore. Walmart does basically everything they do. Target does everything they do. Shoot, Fleet Farm and other names out there do what they do. And that's a big problem because they're going up against the biggest of the big and they're going to lose, and they are losing. There's a real reason why there's a short interest here, John, of somewhere between 30 and 50%, which is not a good number. They got $3.6 billion in debt. That doesn't sound so good. Oh, and by the way, they're only burning about $500 million from the cash flows there that's costing them. This is a real problem. I don't care who the CEO is. It's going to be difficult, and they are going to have to probably go down that route of bankruptcy, and that's why I would stay away from this right now.
Yeah, and if you want to take a shot, you buy them when they file.
Yeah.
And you hope that it's a reorg and not a liquidation. Mm-hmm. But, like the CEO said, who knows if people will bet on them, Pete. It's down to 214 million market cap. That's where the stock sits right now. Ouch. All right. Well, let's talk for a second about AEO, American Eagle Outfitters. Are they going to go the same direction? Maybe they'll go the same direction. Probably not as far, though. But American Eagle Outfitters, people are buying puts that are right at the money. Next week expiring. So tomorrow is January 6th. The week from tomorrow will be January 13th. That's when these expire, meaning you have a week and a day to make money on this trade. Now, I think people are going to be nervous based on, if we get a decent jobs report tomorrow, Friday, Pete, the Fed will be again saying, wow, we've got to hit this thing and hit it hard, meaning higher rates. Well, that could cause stocks like American Eagle and all the consumer debt that people build up charging stuff on their credit cards and so forth. That could cause this one to pop right through the strike price to the downside because a put is the right to sell. They bought 6,000 of those. That's a 600,000 share short position that clicks in right at 15. That's right where the stock was when we saw this hit, Pete. So I had to buy some puts because I think this is wider than just Bed Bath & Beyond.
Here's an interesting one, which is Netflix, John. And it's what I find intriguing here is early on, the stock was starting to move to the upside. It was up around 311. By the way, the stock a year ago was $560. In July, it was 185, and here it is today trading right around 311, somewhere in that range, John, for Netflix. So fundamentally, they look pretty good. They got a great balance sheet. They got great free cash flow. They're trading at 27 times earnings. All those things are good, and it's made that move to the upside. But can it make it for the next couple of days? Because this is extremely short term. 9,000 of the January 6th, which is tomorrow, 315 calls were being bought anywhere between $2 and $3, a little over $3. That was pretty interesting for me. In the first 90 minutes, John, they were buying the 310s, 14,000 of those, the 312s, 7,000 of those, and these 315s, 12.8 thousand of those. So there's a lot of activity there. Will this stock be able to get to the upside? Now, the problem is obviously the backdrop, like we were talking about. From a macro perspective, there's a lot pulling on this market. So can it make a move to the upside? Well, somebody seems to think that there is a shot, but know this. These expire tomorrow. You don't get any more extra time. So if somebody's interested in these, what I did, just so you know, John, I put it on as a spread. I said, you know what? I'm going to actually use some of this against each other to create a spread, the 315, 320. There's a lot of different ways that people could approach this one, but I like what we were seeing in the amount of option paper that was flowing in, and it was all in January 6th expiration cycle. So with all those options, I just had to be a participant in that. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there certainly is a lot of money flowing in that direction.
Yep. Well, whenever I see something like that in Netflix, Pete, I get nervous. I have feasted at times, joining my friend Mark Cuban by buying on a huge drop in Netflix, because as much as everybody wants to write them off, every single time it goes down, it has come back. But it would be real easy to see people pulling back from their subscriptions and consolidating and waiting for the next big hit. And maybe it's Wednesday, but maybe after they've seen it, they decide, you know what, I'm going to wait till I get the next big hit. I'm going to go over and just drop this one and go stick with my Amazon Prime or Hulu or Sling or whatever, Disney Plus. So I'm with you. I think this is an interesting one, but it is so short term that it's really only for active traders. This is not an investor trade.
Right. Yep. Great call. That's exactly right. It's a trader's move, not any kind of investor at this point. Yep, I agree.
Well, what do you have, Pete, as far as some NFL stuff to share with us, other than good news about Hamlin supposedly reacting to stimulus in the hospital?
And maybe even opening up his eyes, I think I saw as well, John. So there's some positives that are coming out of this thing, and that's phenomenal. And a lot of prayers have been going out from absolutely everybody. And it's really exciting, the fact that he is at least looking a little bit better than obviously he was just hours and days ago. So phenomenal. We're really excited about that. John, I thought it would be kind of fun to say, you know what? It's always too early, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to show you what we think are some of the sleepers in this NFL draft. And what makes that so fun is college football is almost done. We still have the championship game, but playoffs are about to kick off pretty soon. We are getting towards the very end of the season, and things are going to start happening. And we are starting to see what it looks like as far as who's going to take what picks. So I think what's really interesting here, John, is who are some of the sleepers? Michigan has a defensive end at Michigan. This kid, Mike Morris, is unbelievable, John. He reminds me a lot of Aiden Hutchinson in some ways. And in some ways, he's even more versatile than him. He's 6'7", weighs 295 pounds. He's an edge rusher, but he also can play the 3 technique, which means he's playing inside as a defensive lineman as well. This guy can put his hand on the ground. He can stand up. He can do absolutely everything. He is an athletic freak, and he's so fun to watch. He's an unbelievable player that I think when we get towards March, John, we're going to go back and see exactly where people had him now to see where he is come March when they start going through the combines and all the rest of that stuff, getting closer and closer to the draft. I think this kid's a real sleeper right now that's going to be a name people will be talking about. Now, do you got anybody on your list? Because I think you got a good one there.
Well, I do. I've got a guy, Pete, that I'm looking at. What a surprise. Georgia. I'm going to surprise you, Pete, because this kid really shines. And I think that Kenny McIntosh from Georgia, 6'1", 210. He's not the pounder that you probably really love when you see running backs that are versatile and can be both college great and pro great, because you get a lot of guys that can get to the outside, but that's about it. This guy's a pretty good size running back, but he catches the ball. He leads all receivers in catches out of the backfield. I think, Pete, 117 catches. So this is a real player in the pro game, because, Georgia obviously had to use him a lot against Ohio State. But I mean, you're talking about guys that in the pros, that's all they do is, you let the running backs run some, but for the most part, unless you've just got one of those, grind it out offenses, you're talking about throwing the ball to the running back. And that kid, I think, from Georgia, you'll get to watch him over the next week on Monday. You'll get to watch him.
Yep, we get one last chance to check him out. And I tell you what, you're exactly right, because being able to catch the ball is so key in the NFL for running backs. And if you've got a guy who has that ability to be a running back, but also catches it out of the backfield, you don't have to take him off the field. That's a huge play, John. And that is something I think is really, really important. Next, we got one more, John. We're going to look at the NFL playoffs, and the playoff that I think of all the games, the last game of the season that's really, really interesting to see who gets there. Who are, we already know that there are certain teams that are absolutely locked, stock, and barrel. They're in it, right? But how about some of the others? And I'm looking at that Green Bay game against Detroit. It's the Sunday night game as well. So they're going to be playing at Lambeau Field. Detroit has not played well outside. They're your typical dome team that has a more difficult time when you have to go back in the elements. But Jared Goff has been on fire, John. He's had 12 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the last 5 games. Jamal Williams has been running the ball like an absolute freak. He had 144 against your Chicago Bears. Brock Wright, he's been stepping up as their tight end. You always need a good tight end. Good quarterbacks always throw to the tight end. If they're great, they definitely get it to the tight end as well. Goff is starting to learn to do that at a much better pace. I'll tell you what, Aaron Rodgers at home. This one, because let's go back to last week. They beat the Minnesota Vikings 41-17. Aaron Rodgers, by the way, was not the reason that they won that game. He threw for 160 yards. He didn't really do a whole lot. The Vikings had a kick return for a touchdown against them, interception return for a touchdown against them. So it really wasn't so much about what was going on with the Green Bay offense. It was a lot more to do with the Minnesota Vikings and all the mistakes. Kirk Cousins threw 3 interceptions. So that was the problem. But I'll tell you what, I'd just love to see if Jared Goff can do this in outdoors. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm going to push back, and I know you're a Kirk Cousins fan anyway, Pete. Boston College, great. But let's not forget that he went through 2 centers. He had his starting center out, second string center out, guard out, starting guard, starting tackle. So you put any quarterback, I don't care if you put Mahomes behind that, you're going to be in trouble. And that's why he was throwing those picks. Uncharacteristically, because, he will force the ball in. And so he does throw picks, but the ones he was throwing against Green Bay, he normally doesn't, but he was just getting shellacked back there.
Yeah.
There was a jailbreak on every single snap. But as far as your question, do I like Green Bay or Detroit in the game? I got to go with Green Bay because it's home game for them. I don't think it's going to be brutally cold up there, which would work in their favor if it were. I think a lot of the players for Detroit will probably pull some of the shenanigans that guys have been doing lately, which is when you go to a cold weather outdoor place, take your jersey off and just run around in pregame without a top on and say, it ain't cold. It ain't cold. And just to try to, but if the fans can do it, I'm sure the players can do it. I don't think weather's going to be the factor, Pete, but I do think that it's a home game on their turf, and it's not the same as an indoor game that Jared Goff or that Goff is used to playing on.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, John. It's going to be a fun game, and I think it's the most exciting of all the games as we get to the very end of the 17-game season. A lot of injuries, a lot of changes, a lot of different people. You and I were talking about this the other day, but there are only 12 quarterbacks in the NFL that started the year that are finishing the year for their teams right now. Gives you a little idea of some of the injuries and some of the guys who were bad had got replaced and all the rest of it. But a lot going on there. There's no doubt about it. I'll tell you what, you were right about Brian O'Neill, the tackle for the Vikings. Losing him and losing 2 centers and going down to your third, that's never easy. And that's a major problem. But, you know, Kirk, sometimes you've got to be a little bit smarter than he was, and you can't just put that ball up there. But again, it was a lot more about the injuries and everything else, and the Vikings are trying to stay as healthy as they can. But it's going to be a struggle, I think, in the playoffs for them, John. As good as I think they are, their defense is still terrible. But their offense had been great. But with all these injuries, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how far they can go in the playoffs.
Yep. It will be, Pete. And we all know people take it up a notch in the playoffs, especially when you're already in.
Yep.
Were they coasting? I don't really think so. And I don't think they sat those players because of anything but the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't heal up, they're not going to go far.
Right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week, folks. Thank you for joining us the first week of the Rebels Edge 2023. We will be back next week, of course, Monday next week, with a full 4 days of Rebel Edge, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow on 3 at 3 as well as today. I'll see you with Pete next Monday.